So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to this is our final risk seminar for 2018. If you've been to our earlier seminars, you may recall that we've covered a wide variety of topics ranging from cybersecurity, product liability risk, the new accounting revenue recognition standard, and we also had a seminar on addressing the issue of harassment in the workplace. And today we wrap up our 2018 seminar series with data security and corporate safety. So our purpose at CDH in providing this seminar series is simply to provide meaningful information on risk topics relevant to our clients and to our client base. And with that said, after today's event, you will receive an email, a survey email, and we'd certainly like you to fill that out and give us feedback. And if there are any risk topics that you would like to see us speak on in the future, please share your ideas and thoughts, and we'll try to incorporate those topics into future events. So before we go into the presentation, let me just introduce real quickly Joe Friedman. He's my co-presenter today, and let me just give him a minute to speak about his business.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to present today and talk to you. Hopefully you'll get something out of this, from at least what I have to talk about. My business, Plan, Prepare, Do, stems out of the fact that as a retired police officer, firefighter, paramedic, the many different calls that I've been on, the many different crimes that I've had to investigate, and then I went into private security after that in 2014, especially in corporate America. The offices, just the way we do our business, what we focus on, really leaves a lot of opportunity for criminal behavior. And that criminal behavior is something that obviously we want to eliminate completely or slow down and keep to a halt where we can keep up with it. So we've been doing that now for a few years now, and we love what we do. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. So to get started, so I'm going to speak on the data security topic, and then Joe will follow and speak about the corporate safety. And on the data security side, I'm going to address three main points. Number one, why should data security be front and center in the minds of management? Okay, why is it an important topic for management to prioritize? Number two, I'm going to give you some material on, what does management need to know? So many times when I talk to clients about data security, their response, their answer is typically, well, I have an IT person. But we think that data security should be a management priority, and we think that management needs to know some basic things about this so that they can be effective in making judgments in this area. And then the last thing is I'm going to provide some tips and best practices that you can think about and that you can consider if you are doing these things in your business or not. So that's the data security side. And Joe, you want to talk about?
Yeah, we're gonna jump into the types of crimes, right, that are committed in offices. Whether you know about them or not, we're gonna also talk about the costs and risk factors to those crimes. Give you some recent examples, and then I will close with hopefully a few nuggets of maybe what you can do very simply and inexpensively to stop some of these crimes. Some of the crimes are caught after the fact, and we hope you have some technology for evidentiary purposes, but otherwise, we're really trying to stop them at the gate before they even get in.
Okay. So why is data security, why should data security be top of mind for management in a corporate boardroom? Well, the first and most obvious reason is the cost of a breach. Now, I could talk to you about reputational damage, the potential for litigation, the potential for loss of customers, but I want to get real practical here. You know, one issue that we've seen with increasing frequency in our client base is ransomware attacks. Now, a ransomware attack is basically a type of malware that most likely somebody in your firm clicks on a link that they shouldn't have clicked on. It downloads the malware, and in the background, it just starts encrypting all the data on your server. And then when it's done, it pops up and says, hey, your data is encrypted. Do you want to get your data back? And if you want to get your data back, it will ask you to pay some money. And so when something like that happens, if you have a backup and you can restore the data, I mean, you can get around having to pay the money, but you have to spend time and resources to do that. So that's just one simple example. And we've seen clients victimized by ransomware not once, but multiple times. And so, you know, the cost of data security and the cost of breaches can gradually add up and can become significant. The second topic that you should know is with regard to regulatory trends. So I know I was talking to Michael, and we were talking about GDPR. Does everybody know what GDPR is? GDPR is the new data privacy law in the European Union. And it is very strict. And so just to give you an example, if I'm a European citizen and I come to you and I say, where's my data? You have to be able to tell me where that data is located. And you have to be able to give me a right to pull that data, to erase that data. And so that's the European Union. Now you may think, well, that's overseas. But just this year, the state of California has passed their own data privacy law, and I believe it goes into effect in 2020, but it's very similar in many respects to the European law. The point is that regulatory trends are moving toward greater data governance, greater oversight, and as a business, as a company, we believe you need to be proactive and to think about how you can position your company to be prepared for these changes. And let me just make one distinction about data privacy. Data privacy and data security are not the same thing. Data privacy is about how you use the data. It's about who has access to the data. Are you selling the data? Who controls it? That's data privacy. Data security is controlling access to data and controlling access to systems. They're related, but they're not necessarily the same. The third point I want to make is that data security, the risk, the cyber risk, it's always changing. It's not static. And so the reason, for example, you may get updates on your computer all the time, well, the reason you're getting all these updates is because Microsoft is patching all the new holes that they find. There's some new security risks, so they have to modify their program. So the risk is always changing. And the next point, so companies tell their employees that the employee is the most valuable asset. And I think that's true. But employees with regard to data security, they are also the biggest risk. And the simple reason is employees have access to data. Employees are involved with your company on a daily basis. And in most cases, when a company has a security breach, it happens through an employee in some way. And then finally, we think management should be prioritizing data security because data security is not an IT issue. It's a leadership issue. It's an issue about the future of the firm. And so let's go to the, what does management need to know? And let's talk about some basics. The first one is more conceptual. Data security is not something that you have a one-time project and you're done. It's not, let's get this done by December. It's something that's continuous. It happens, you have to continually address it and keep it in front of your leadership team. Security is not generic. So, every company is different. Every business has different types of data. They use the data in different ways. The way you operate your business is going to be different. So you need a security plan that fits what you're doing. And then finally, spend strategically. So when we go and talk to small and mid-sized businesses, many of those businesses say, well, we don't have the money to spend on all this data security or this cyber security. We don't think you need to be as secure as the Pentagon. But there are frequently simple things that you can do. You can allocate your resources to make sure that your security posture is appropriate and it's putting you in a better position to prevent a disastrous breach. So we said before that employees are one of the biggest risks. And so how do you get employees on board to improve your data security? Well, education and culture. So do you have some type of training program? For example, training employees. Show your employees an example of what a phishing email looks like. How can you identify that this is a phishing email? Make it something that's talked about in your company meetings. Communicate about security incidents. All of that can help create a culture where people are aware of the risk, and if they see something, what's the saying, I think on Metric, it says, if you see something, say something. Well, you want your employees, if they get a questionable email, you want them to communicate that to somebody. And without being afraid that they're going to get hammered for, if something goes wrong. And then finally, as I said before, it's a journey, not a destination, but even if you have a good security posture, you may still have a security incident. Cyber criminals are not sitting still, and they're not going to give up. There's too much money involved. They're constantly looking for a better way. And so even if you have a suitable security posture for your business, the potential is there. In fact, you should expect to have some type of security incident at some point. Okay. So let's talk about a few tips and best practices. So the first tip is inventory and prioritize your data. So, what data do we hold? How do we use it? Some data is going to be more sensitive than other data, right? So if you're in a business where you have, for example, you have medical-related information about people, that has a high security risk. And so that would be a higher priority set of data. You may have customer credit card information. So again, identify all the different types of data you have and know where it's located. Number 2, create and test data backups. So I know many of my clients, I go and talk to them about their IT security, their IT general controls, and they tell me, well, we have a backup. And I say, well, when was the last time you tested it? And they never have tested it. They say, I get an email every day that tells me the backup is successful. But stop and think for a minute. If you have a security breach, if you get attacked by ransomware, and you can't restore that backup quickly, what's a day's worth of business to you? How much money would you lose if you couldn't access your system for a day or for 2 days? And so it's very important to test those data backups. Number 3, limit access. Again, small businesses, people have to wear many hats. Sometimes it may be difficult to limit access to systems, but from a data security perspective, your goal should be to have as few people as possible with access to any data set, but still able to do their jobs and to operate effectively. So you're not trying to prevent people from doing their jobs, but you want to restrict as much as possible people who can access a given set of data internally. Control physical access. When we go out testing IT general controls, one thing we'll typically do is we'll say, if they have a server on site, where's your server room? And we'll go and we'll see if it's locked or not. You don't want people who shouldn't be accessing your equipment to be able to get to it. It's that simple. Train employees. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not a good password. So, what's a good password? What are best practices in using the technology that your firm uses? How does an employee report something? What does something that's suspicious look like? So all of those are topics that you can teach your employees about. And then finally, utilize external resources. Cyber criminals, they use lots of different methods to get inside an organization. And so, for example, as part of your training program for employees, you may want to hire an external firm to attack your company. They could send those phishing emails to your employees and see how many employees click on that link and use that as a training tool. If you don't have an internal IT person, you may want to outsource your IT and get some support to help you set up a security posture that works for your business. So that's all I have on the data security. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and then at the end we'll open it up for some questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, good job, Brian. That was awesome. Okay, so as he's talking, I'm going, wow, that's what I do. Oh, that's what I do. Oh, that's so true. That's everything we do, right? And time and time again, what you're talking about for data security and data privacy, this is so hard to find, right? Unless you're Steve. Steve's like, oh, I got it. But it's something that, from my standpoint, when I do physical security, it is, I'm just going to wire, okay? And the wire goes into something and goes somewhere else, and, you know. So when we talk about physical security, let's just talk about this first and foremost. Let's get this. I want to make sure you understand, all right? If anything happens for your safety in this room today, do you know where the exits are? How many exits are in this room? Aha. Take a look, right? All right, so there's 3. But this might be an exit. It might go into something else, lead out to a different hall. But there's 3 marked exits, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, anybody have any interest in concealed carry? Anybody have any handguns? Anyone? Okay.
Just interest.
Interest, but not a concealed carry permit, do you? No? Okay. You know, a lot of people want concealed carry permits because they think it's a real cool thing. And yet, you know, employers put a little sticker on the front of their window, right, the gun and the circle, and slash through it, and that's going to stop my employees from bringing their guns in. Does it?
No.
No. So when we deal with security and security issues, there's a multitude of things. And, you know, like Brian said, it really does involve some policies and procedures. You can have policies and procedures, ink on paper, right, and that at least satisfies one checkbox. But the reality is, you're not going to get any farther than that if you do not communicate those. And then once they're communicated, they need to be trained. They need to be trained again. It's like a repeat, repeat, repeat. But then each time you repeat, hopefully you've got something in that system that's going to be evaluating how the last version worked and what needs to be updated and improved. Because as Brian knows, technology is always changing. And the more we talk about criminal behavior, somebody in the crowd is thinking, oh, cool, well, I know how to defeat that now, right? Because every time we present the topic and every time we talk about it, even a video footage, you'd be like, oh, well, that guy went in the wrong door. He should have gone in this way. And so we have to be very careful about talking about that. But there's crimes that are committed against people, right? And that's weird. Oh, my gosh, active shooter, another violent situation. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible, right? But I always tell employers, I said, you know what your best asset is, in addition to all of your intellectual property, in addition to that big warehouse with all of the raw product, and then over here, the finished product, your people. Your people are your biggest assets, too. And we have to worry about the morale, because if you're not doing anything to keep them excited, to keep them engaged, to let them know that you really care about them, then we have issues. And we have prime opportunity for those employees to commit crimes. Why? Because they haven't gotten a raise in the last 5 years. And if they have gotten raises, they're 1% raises. Well, we know the cost of living is going up 2 to 3% a year. Right? You did a great job this year. You're getting the best raise in the whole company. You're getting 1.5%. And back in the day, right, when our parents worked jobs, they worked jobs for 20 to 30 years. And now how much does, what is it, Generation Z? What generation we're on? We're on to something, 2 years, tops. All right, so morale, right? The Gallup organization estimates there's 22 million disengaged employees that cost the American economy $350 billion. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Because then you get theft of time, right? It's the person that's supposed to be there at 8:30, but he showed up at 8:45. And they're supposed to work until 5:30, but you know, they left a little early, or their lunch spilled over into something else. So time is very easy to steal, and it's hard to recapture, right? Employer cannot go back to an employee and say, hey, by the way, you know what, we got you here, you're philandering 50 minutes this week, so I need you to stay an extra 50. Not going to happen. And then when you talk about productivity, you know, they're not really working at their desk. They're on emails, personal emails. They're checking their cell phones. They're doing all that stuff. in life, of course, I always say we never want anything to happen to somebody where somebody is actually, getting hurt on the job. So a lot of attention in the media has been put on schools and school safety, right? Kids, they're pretty much helpless. And like I told Brian on the phone, it is like catching fish in a barrel, right? They're in their schools, they're trapped, they don't have anywhere else to go, and here somebody comes that either wants to make a name for themselves or they really want to hurt people. And we put so much attention on that in the media, but the reality is 30% of active shooter mass casualty and violent events are happening in schools. 60% are happening in our corporate offices. 60%. Twice as many. And supplies. I admit to probably taking a few pence from my past employers. Okay? I'm sorry. I owe them for the pens and the paper clips. But supplies. And we have some other issues. So, and information, as Brian touched upon very concisely. Information, blueprint for an application. Oh, well, what's the harm in that, right? Or if you have access to an employee handbook, you're like, I like the way this employee handbook looks. I'm going to go start a business. Rather than rewriting an entire employee handbook, I'm just going to borrow this. It won't have the same company name. In fact, it won't even have the same hours because the way my company works, the old company was 8 to 5. My new company is going to be 10 to whatever. Just show up whenever. All right, and merchandise because a lot of retailers have stuff stolen. And ironically, we have theft from businesses. And when the business calls and they say, "Oh, whole rack of leather jackets stolen," really? Yeah, each jacket was $600. There were 20 of them. And, funny thing about the corner where that rack was, there's no security cameras. Really? All right. So, when you talk about theft from a business, yes, there is the electronic way of stealing things. But then, this 2017 report shows another collective $50 billion just bleeding out of businesses because of funds, right? Check fraud, vendor fraud, credit card fraud, all of this just leaking out of businesses. And then we can take a look at it a little more monetarily, right? Vendor fraud. Wow, vendor fraud is the top one, right? Funds theft, check fraud, payroll fraud, credit cards, loan. It's hard to do the loan thing now, right? Harder to do that. You have to be an officer. But we know of some officers that are, not on the up and up. Okay. So what are some of the risks, right? Current trends, motives, are they all nuts? Do they all have some mental illness and that's why they're committing these crimes? No, I think, this is from the United States Secret Service, but even this summer the FBI released some information about mass casualty and active shooter crime, and they're really alluding to the fact that a lot of these people really are not mentally ill or have no documented incidents of mental illness. It may be less than 30%. 48% of these people have any history of mental illness or on any medication. But when we talk about that, what about financial stress, right? I didn't get that raise I was expecting. What about, I didn't get that promotion I was expecting. And did anyone hear about this recently in the last month? The new trend for young executives is to take the promotion, get the title. No, you keep the money. I don't need a raise. And they're doing this all with a zero bump in income. Not bad. Puts a lot of pressure on the people that have families and have to still pay for everything. So, financial stress or greed. Would you agree? Financial stress or greed? I mean, maybe somebody doesn't really need it, but it just looks good, right? Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to have a bar of gold that holds my door open at my house. Okay, so hope to unwitness or witness the crime or be undetected. Let me just go back to that last one. Let me step on the second bullet too. right? And life. When I talk about mass casualty events, when we talk about in the United States, just in 2017, you're talking about 700 people injured, 147 killed, and 28 mass attacks alone, right? And then in this study, they're saying 64% exhibit mental health. But the FBI, it's almost, they're contradicting. So they don't talk to one another. But what? Personal grievances in the workplace, domestic problems. Last week where I live, a husband stabbed and killed his wife. Nice couple. We never would have known that. And wow, they were so nice. Why would he do that? And then personal issues. All right, Brian, thank you. So Brian and I have talked about a lot of the similarities between what he's trying to achieve with businesses and also what I'm trying to achieve with businesses. It boils down to this. When you have an emergency, when you detect something that's not right, and you're calling for help, and it takes them a few minutes to get there, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you sitting there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for help? Are you freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to hear about this. This is going to be really embarrassing. This is going to be bad for PR. After the fact type of statements that you're like, oh gosh, I wish I had known that this was going to happen. In Chicago, when we talk about office shootings, 231 South LaSalle, it seemed to be pretty much isolated incident. It was domestic. It was the guy goes into the office. How does he get into the office with a gun? How does he get into the building past security that's pointing into the elevators? There you are, sir. Right? So nowadays we've got different things. Guard checks you in, wants to see a photo ID, gives you a barcode. That barcode will either get you to the carousel, to the elevator bank, or the elevators themselves are even destination driven by the security. But after that, the security thinks they've got everything under control. Is there any camera on the elevator? Because when I get to the elevator that says I'm going to the 12th floor, oh, hi, you're going to the 12th floor too? Yeah. Really? How do I know that person didn't just sneak into the elevator with me and he's going to see what he can get on the 12th floor, whether it's going to be financial gain or injury? Maybe there's somebody on the 12th floor he's got to, settle a dispute with. So, 410 felon charged in the fatal shooting of Commander Paul Bauer. You guys know about that, right? That was a pretty sad incident. And the thing was, Commander Bauer wasn't even on duty. He was off duty. I just heard the radio traffic. So that's where I worked. I was District 18, and I worked with Commander Bauer. Then the shooting in the Pennsylvania Retirement Center. Oh boy. Remember that? Well, that was just last week. Suspect shooter dead in Wisconsin. Oh my gosh. That was just last week. Right? A week ago. These things are happening all over the place. Oh, former clerk wanted in the theft of thousands. Wow. All this stuff that, to be honest, most corporate crimes will either go unnoticed or unreported for a period of 2 years. Because the resiliency isn't there. The resiliency that should have been there to prevent and stop it from ever happening, But what are we doing after the fact? We're trying to catch up. You're trying to gather as much information as possible because even in a public information officer situation, when we have a crime, something really bad has happened, we don't just tell that person to stand up into the podium, the cameras are here, Hans Zemeckis is here, she wants to investigate this and ask more questions about this. We don't put that person out in front of everybody until they know the facts. So it takes a long time to gather the facts, right? How did this happen? All right. So, and what really concerns me is while the lesson has been learned about that particular crime, a lot of time and energy goes into figuring out how to prevent that thing from happening. But I'm already telling you, I already said this at the beginning of the class, criminals have already figured out 10 other ways to commit the same or similar crime. So it's not going to happen exactly the way that crime happened. It's going to happen again, but it's going to happen a little differently. And if you just prepare only for this, you miss that. All right. So, here we go. I think crime can be stopped, don't you? I mean, I think for the most part we're all good people, right? We don't race in our cars. We don't exceed the speed limit. I told a little white lie yesterday to my wife. We had a leaky pipe, and it was dripping. It was causing a water stain in the garage ceiling. I'm like, ugh. So I had to cut open a hole, and I'm looking, and go ahead, turn the water on. And as she's running the water, I can see the drip off the pipe. And I go, oh, these kids, what are they doing? I had to take the pipe apart. I go to the hardware store. I go, this is it. This is the pipe. This is the one that's leaking. And the man at the hardware store said, sir, that is an awesome pipe. That pipe is an outlet view. I said, what? He said, see, our pipes, they're not made the way that pipe is made. So I would keep that pipe. I said, well, but it's got a leak. Anyway, he cleaned it all up for me. I reattached it, and it worked great. Okay? I'm like, wow. I can use that same pipe. So I stopped the leak, but I ended up using something that I already had rather than go ahead and buy something new. It really wasn't going to last as long either. Okay? We're getting away from physical security because, you know, cars at $10 an hour, you can be easily distracted. By the way, I like that shirt. I really do. Yeah. Okay? Easily distracted. Talking about something else that was on TV last night. Did you watch the game? I mean, it was unbelievable, that catch. He went all the way into the end zone. What does that have to do with security? Well, the other bad guys are sitting right past me. So physical security, protection of both soft and hard targets. Hard targets are like this table. This is going to look good in my house later. Just can't get in my car. And soft targets are you, people. Right? And we do better background checks for our employees. Yes? I mean, based on what you're looking at, you look great in the interview. Your resume looks great. You know, you're very articulate. And that's what I can see. You went to the school, you got, right? But we don't really know everything about every UPS driver, FedEx driver, the messenger, the electrician, the plumber, anybody that has access to our building, access to our information. We really know everything about them. You can start to get a lot of information if you had somebody that was actually following some of their social media behaviors. If you had employees that were trained in understanding stress, and understanding like, oh my gosh, you know, he's come to work a couple times and I've been smelling a little alcohol on him. Really? Well, was it Mardi Gras, or is this like he's coming to work every Monday morning and he smells like, you know, what's going on about his life, right? For example. So, do background checks. When you do a background check when you hire the employee, do you do anything else through that employment period? You're like, no, we check him out, he's good. Do you know whether or not this person is also going to have to go to court because of a domestic situation? Right? Oh, I need next Wednesday off. No, just a personal day. They've got to go to court because they hit their wife, they hit their kid, they did something, they got arrested, DUI. All right? Everybody, even vendors and contractors. You get a contractor, if they sub, do you know any of the other people they're letting in? Huge problem. Right? Gang affiliation, criminal background, everything. And you basically, like a castle, right? They have a moat, they have drawbridge. You couldn't get into the castle unless you set the secret password, you wore the right armor, and then they let the drawbridge down and they let you in. I mean, this is corporate business. You are the castle. And somebody has to let that drawbridge down. Electronic access control, video, computers, servers. Steve and I were talking about this. When we were looking at our access system, we had 7,000 people in our access system. When we were dealing with our cameras, we had 20 NVRs and 200 cameras. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean the factory has some generic login password for each camera? And the NVR, what? 800 a day? 800 a day attacks on the NVRs. That's crazy. That's a busy job for Steve, right? All right. And policies and procedures. You got to spell it out. You don't have to make it too complicated, but spell it out and keep people engaged. Keep them interested. And you know, the security guard. Well, yes, he's physically there to make people behave, but your employers can all play a role in preventing stuff like this from happening. So when you monitor and report, establish way employees can report anything odd about the behavior of somebody else, about comments made, about something suspicious they saw or heard, right? And train. Who here is getting paid to be here today? Anyone? Are you on the clock? Okay. All right. What I allude to, and I tell this to Brian, I said this to Jen, I said this is really funny. When you think about how everybody's decisions are made on two things, time and money. Okay? And when you come to a training event like this and you're getting paid, isn't that kind of like, woo, woo, nice, right? It's good to get paid. But then when you signed up for this, you also like, well, how much time is this going to take? You know, like this can't be like half a day. It can't be a whole day. I can just be away from the office for a little bit. True? Time and money, everything. Even your ride home. Hey, how much for dinner tonight? Oh, I didn't make dinner. Oh, she didn't make dinner. This is going to take another hour. Oh my gosh, do we have anything? Is it frozen? Is it ready to go? What are we doing? Oh, I'm driving past McDonald's. Can we do McDonald's tonight? Sure. Okay? So you have to train employees about what you are looking at, what you're looking for. Otherwise, they don't know. And like Brian said, send them an example phishing email and see how many of them actually click on it. If they click on it, whoa, they don't obviously understand. Do they even report it? Hey, by the way, Steve, I just got this email forwarding all the information. Have learning objectives. And like I said, with policy and procedure, you should be evaluating everything you do and updating it. And, you know, repeat. Okay, next one. So, at some point, what I guess I'm getting at is the crimes either have nothing to do with money at all, because this is just for a hacker to see if he can hack in. This is just for a criminal to see if he can actually do it, right, to get away with it, or it does have something to do with money. It all has to do with money. You have to figure it out. But no two crimes are the same. No two criminals are the same. For us, a lot of after the fact trying to figure out why, what, who, when. But we're working with businesses to try to help them perfect, right? If you're just here, then we want to get you to good. If you're good, we want to get you to better. If you're better, then we really want to get you to the best. And so far, I haven't seen it. I just haven't. And part of it's the human element, part of it's that technology. The technology is changing so much that the cost is very, very significant. All right, well, thank you very much. That's my portion.
So we hope to see you in the future at more of our risk seminars. So thank you very much for coming.